I've been in several conversations where in Nigeria and outside Nigeria, where typically where you have problems with governance, and this is not just something peculiar to Nigeria. It's very peculiar wherever you have these problems. People immediately blame the leadership. Oh, the problem of Nigeria is our leaders.
We know it's not true.
We know it's not true, but we hear it said all the time.
Yes.
When the truth is, the problem of Nigeria is us, right? So in a sense, this is the citizens, which basically comes down to, we have a leader and we are saying he's the problem. But the truth is, we're the problem. And that's especially true in a democracy, right? Yeah. Government of the people, for the people, by the people, right? So that statement that the problem is the followers proves to be very true, even more true in a democracy than a dictatorship, right? Because with a dictatorship, you don't have a choice. Someone is forcing themselves on you. But in a republic democracy, you basically put that person in that office, and more times than not, to a very large extent, they are, whoever you put in office is a reflection of the whole, the whole, right? So yeah, followers are important, but again, there needs to be a distinction between bad following and skilled following, right? And that's why you should give yourself to developing your followership capacity, because if you don't, you're going to follow anyway. You're just not going. You're probably going to be an immature or foolish or blind follower, as opposed to being a skilled, mature, wise follower.
Hello guys, welcome back to Modern Headlines, and with me today I have a guest. I'll let him introduce himself first before I talk about what we're going to discuss.
My name is Ubong Ntewo. I'm the executive director of LOC United. It means Learners of Christ the King United. And we work with churches and nonprofits just to help, help increase their performance, as it has to do with it, whether it has to do with their faith, whether it has to do with a work culture. We're just there to serve churches and organizations like that. Yeah. So nice to be here.
Oh, thank you. So before we start, I know that you're very passionate about followership. I remember when we had a discussion and we're trying to find a topic to discuss today, and you said followership. So why do you think followership is very important in today's society?
Well, the reason I'm so passionate about followership is because I think as a culture globally, that we have placed such a huge emphasis on leadership, and yet the research shows that as much as we're investing of our time, our energy, and our talent, that there hasn't been an increase in good leaders. As a matter of fact, the research shows that we're having a leadership problem. So I think that the reason why we're seeing that problem is because we are not giving equal emphasis to followership. Right. So if you were to think of a coin having two sides, leadership would be one side of the coin and followership would be the other side of the coin. But for that coin to have any true value, you would have to appreciate the fact that it has both, that it has two sides. And as a culture, we consider right now leadership a virtue. So everybody wants to be a leader. Everyone is working to develop their leadership capacity. But no one is even thinking about followership as a capacity or an ability that needs to be developed. So as a result, we are seeing the deficiency in leadership. Yeah.
Okay, so followership is something that I know about. You know, I know that to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower.
Okay. So
I believe that every follower aspires to be a leader, because how do you lead without following?
Well, I don't subscribe to the idea that every follower eventually becomes a leader. Because I think what happens is if you believe that and if you actually propagate that, what you're spreading is the idea that followership as a value, that the only value that followership brings is that eventually you become a leader, right? Yeah. So followership becomes a virtue by association, right? But then we consider leadership a value independently. Inherently, leadership is a value. But followership is not. The only reason followership is even important is because you will become a leader eventually. And that's a big mistake, because followership itself is a virtue. Okay. It's a virtue, and it's a capacity that if I'm looking to develop myself, I should also develop, right?
Yeah.
Another reason is it's very obvious. Not everybody becomes a leader. As a matter of fact, not everyone is called to be a leader, right? So leadership is a completely different ability than followership. However, it is essential that it's essential that people understand that to be a good and effective leader, that you should be a skilled follower, or that you should have somewhat of a mature followership capacity. Yeah.
So for us to have good leaders, we have to have good followers, because leaders. Sorry to cut you there. So leaders don't just come from nowhere.
Right.
Even when you have good leadership skills, you need to learn. There are basics. There are things you need to learn before you get to that place.
100%. Yeah. Okay. So
leaders must be followers.
Yes. First. Well, yes. Right. But not every follower will eventually be a leader. Right. Like take, for example, right, exactly. So so we agree. I'm saying, yes, that ideally, before someone is brought into a position of leadership, there must have shown evidence of being competent followers, right? Ideally. But not every competent follower eventually becomes a leader. So what I'm saying is, just be a good follower for the sake of being a good follower.
But everybody is not born to just be a follower. There are people that don't like to, follow for too long.
So here's what's interesting. I would say everybody is born to be a follower, but not everybody is born to be a leader.
Right.
Right. Yeah. In the sense of every person, when they're born, starts with following. Right. Take, for example, an example that I typically use is I say to people when I'm giving a lecture, I say, hey, have you ever seen a baby pop out of their mother? And then the baby says, hey, mommy, follow me. I'm going to teach you how to do this life. Right? No.
Of course not.
Typically, we know that babies grow by mimicking, by copying, right? And that's basically what it means to follow. A follower is someone who either does what other people say do, or imitates what other people say do, right? So really to follow is to follow wisely, or to be an adept follower is someone who's wise and adept at knowing how to do what other people are doing, or how to copy other people, when to copy other people, why to copy other people.
Learning from other people's mistakes.
Learning from other people's mistakes. Those are things that you learn as a follower, right? I think an important application that I like to use is, I've been in several conversations where, in Nigeria and outside Nigeria, where typically where you have, problems with governance. And this is not just something peculiar to Nigeria. It's very peculiar wherever you have these problems. People immediately blame the leadership. Oh, the problem of Nigeria is our leaders.
We know
I hear that.
True.
We know it's not true, but we hear it said all the time.
Yes.
When the truth is, the problem of Nigeria is us, right? So in a sense, this is the citizens, which basically comes down to, oh, we have a leader and we are saying he's the problem. But the truth is, we're the problem. And that's especially true in a democracy, right? Yeah. Government of the people, for the people, by the people, right? So that statement, that the problem is the followers, proves to be very true, even more true in a democracy, than a dictatorship, right? Because with a dictatorship, you don't have a choice. Someone is forcing themselves on you. But in a republic democracy, you basically put that person in that office. And more times than not, to a very large extent, they are, whoever you put in office is a reflection of the whole, of the whole, right? So followership, followers are important. But again, there needs to be a distinction between bad following and skilled following, right? And that's why you should give yourself to developing your followership capacity, because if you don't, you're going to follow anyway. You're just not good. You're probably going to be an immature or foolish or blind follower, as opposed to being a skilled, mature, wise follower.
Okay, so in reality, I want you to give us a scenario. So what does good followership look like in reality?
Okay.
In practice.
Practice. Okay, so I would say an example of good followership, right, is the idea, okay, that a follower, or is the principle that a follower has what I like to call multi-sites or simul-sight. Okay. And what I mean by simul-sight is that a follower, a good mature follower, has the capacity to keep their eyes or their focus on their immediate leader and on the vision.
Okay.
Right. So a good follower doesn't just keep their eyes on the person leading them. They're keeping their eyes on the person leading them, but they're also keeping their eyes on the vision or the destination that has been set as this is the end goal.
Okay.
Right. So that's one example. And I think we see that a lot. One example that I could use, because it's an area that I work in a lot, is in churches. It's in churches, right? Christians have a tendency, right? And of course, this is a very general statement. So this is not true of every Christian, but Christians have a tendency to keep their focus on their pastor. Right. So pastor says go right, they go right. Pastor says go left, they go left. Yeah. And then there's a church scandal, or then someone is hurt and they say, oh, we're going to stick to the pastor.
Yeah.
So that's what I call monocyte. You're just one-sided, you're one directional.
Yeah.
Simul-sight is I have my eyes on my pastor, but I also have my eyes on Jesus, right? Because in biblical Christianity, the vision, the end goal is Jesus, right? Yeah. Jesus in us, Christ in us, the hope of glory. Mm-hmm. We don't know what we're going to be like, but we know that when he appears, we will be like him, right? So Jesus is the destination and the vision. The average Christian tends to keep their eyes only on the pastor, right?
Yeah.
But simul-sight now says, no. I'm not just going to keep my eyes on my pastor. I'm going to have my eyes on my pastor and on Jesus, because he's ultimately the vision and the vision giver. So if my pastor deviates or tells me to deviate or do contrary, I don't, because I have simul-sight, right? I have my eyes on the vision. But if I have my eyes solely on the person leading me, then I'll deviate where they are. And more times than not, we end up where we don't want to end up. Now, this is not only true for Christianity. This is true even in the corporate world.
Yeah, I was about to say, give us an example in the Nigerian society. Give us, something that we can relate to within Nigeria.
So like I said, this also applies even in the corporate world or even outside the church. So imagine yourself as an employee.
Okay.
Civil servant, business, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
It's important that you keep your sight on your immediate supervisor, director, manager, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But that you also keep your sight on the vision or mission of that company. Most corporations have either a mission statement and vision statement, or even have both.
Yeah.
Right? So what we find is employees who actually progress in corporations, right, in big companies, are employees who are apt at following and meeting criteria set by their supervisors, right?
Okay.
But that also show an inclination, to further the agenda of the corporation itself. And that's because they have their sights also on the overall mission and vision of that company, right? So how that applies is, hey, it doesn't, I'm like, wherever you're working, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, do what your immediate superior says, but if you're wise, you should also be looking and saying, how does this thing that I'm doing enhance the overall mission
of the
company?
Okay.
Right. I've heard of stories where people own hotels or own restaurants, and of course, they have managers, and the people working under these managers are asked, basically their superiors ask them to do things. contrary to what this owner of the business wants.
Okay.
This employee knows the owner of the business, who's not here every day, doesn't want this. But I'm going to do it anyway because my immediate supervisor said I should do that. So you see how that's not wise followership. I know the vision. I know the expectations of the owner. But because my supervisor or manager said do so, then I'm not going to do it. Now, typically what happens is when the owner finds out, he doesn't just fire you. He fires you and that immediate supervisor. But more times than not, sometimes the immediate supervisor doesn't even get touched.
Of course.
You are the one who got fired.
Yeah.
Right. So, so that's just one principle of good followership. It's, I don't just have set my sights on my immediate superior. I set my sights on my immediate superior as well as the vision and mission of whatever corporation, business, or community I'm a part of.
Yeah.
Right. But what we find is you don't hear that discussed a lot. And the reason why is because we don't think of followership as something that needs to be developed, right? Yeah. So we are used to books that lay out leadership principles. Yeah. We are used to going to leadership conferences and hearing, the seventh principle of effective leadership is this, the 10th rule is this. But most of us don't even know that there are principles of followership that are actually the foundation for successful and effective leadership. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So when we're having that conversation, when we started this conversation at the court, we talked about, you were about to say something about types of followers. Right. And I said, hold it for when we have the conversation.
Right.
Yeah. So please, can you tell us about the different types of followers types of followership?
So I mean, I remember saying that.
Yeah.
But it's been over 24 hours, so I don't remember where I was going with it.
And I know that part of the conversation I was really waiting to, because I was like, okay.
Yeah. No, I don't remember where I was going with it, but what I probably was going to say was just making the distinction that there's a difference between a wise follower and a foolish follower, or that that followership is not just something you do. That to mature and be good at it, you actually have to learn. First discover the principles, learn them, apply them, and then live. Then live them out.
Okay, yeah. I think what you probably wanted to talk about was like, let me use the wise and the unwise followers, like the type we have in the church.
Okay.
Probably the ones that just follow blindly,
right? And
the ones that follow and know that this is my pastor, but the pastor is not taking or doing the right thing right now. So then, another thing I would like you to touch on is ego.
Ego.
Yeah, a lot of people have this ego thing where they're like, I should be the leader. I want to be the leader. Why should I be behind?
Yeah. But okay, so of course people are going to have that problem.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason why is because we live in a culture that says leadership is a virtue and that followership is a vice. Right.
Of course not.
So, but that's what, we can, when we think about it, when we actually like intentionally think about it, 99.9% of us are going to say, of course not. Of course, followership is a virtue, but that's not what we don't articulate that. And that's not what we convey involuntarily, right? Unconsciously and involuntarily, what we communicate is that leadership is a virtue and that followership is a vice. One of the most evident ways that to show that that's what we believe is the fact that most of us have leadership books in our homes, on our shelves.
I actually have...
Or leadership podcasts.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of leadership books. But in those leadership books, I learned that I have to be a follower first.
Great.
I remember when I told you, I believe I'm a great follower.
Right.
Because everything that I have learned today, I've never actually put myself in that place where I'm like, I want to be a leader. No.
Right.
It's always, come and lead, or come and join this team, or come and... I've actually never... I'm sure you noticed it now with the whole treasure thing. I'm like, no, I don't want to... And I fought it so bad. So people don't understand that part of, followership. Because
Right.
how do you even know that you're going to be a good leader if you don't? You have to see how, the leader did things, and,
Right.
you learn, that whole process.
Right.
You know what to take out and what to keep in,
Right. Or even you know how to follow a vision. Right.
Yeah.
If you're coming in as a leader, what you have two immediate tasks, right? It's either to realign whatever community organization you are now leading. It's either to realign them with the vision, right? Or to come up with a new vision. Either way, right, for you to succeed, you have to have the capacity to follow that vision. Oftentimes what happens is people start out with a vision, things get difficult or chaotic, confusing, and they change vision, right? When, hey, maybe the problem wasn't the vision, right? Maybe the problem was you just needed to persevere. Maybe the problem was that you needed to come up with a different path to get to that vision, right? Right. There could have been, so many things.
Yeah.
But because I'm not faithful to that vision, right, which is where following comes in, right? Because I'm not faithful to follow that vision to where it is, I take maybe the easier route of, okay, no, we're going to come up with something new that might be just as successful or just might be just as impactful, but no, we don't want to walk that road, right? So the point is, leaders need to know how to follow. Leaders need to know how to follow. Yeah.
I think somebody should actually write a book on followership. I don't know if there's any. I know there's a podcast about followership, and they have like the lowest views ever.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to be a leader.
Wants to be a leader, right?
Somebody should come up with a followership book, because I think
there's a book out there.
Is more important.
That's a really, really good book.
Okay.
Really, really good book. It's called A Misplaced Priority. I know you can find it on Amazon.
Okay.
It's probably one of the best books on followership out there. It's called A Misplaced Priority. I think the author's name is, I think it's Ubong Ntewo. Yeah. I would be the author, right?
Oh, okay.
I would be the author.
No, you can actually, you can plug your book. Come on.
Full disclosure, right?
Yeah.
You asked, so there is a book out there.
Okay.
And based on the
written by you.
Written by me.
Okay.
Based on the feedback I've gotten, I'm, from what I hear, it's a very, very good book. And it's been very helpful for a lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll check that out.
I'll
look for it.
I love critique, so if you read it, let me know what you think.
I'll let you know. Yeah. So there's no hardcover version?
There's you can get hardcover.
Where?
Again on Amazon.
Why? We have Boulders.
I know, I haven't connected. Well, so I've met Boulders and we talked, but I need to follow up with her so we can get it here.
Please do. I'd like to have the hard copy.
Yeah.
I don't have the patience to wait for things to be delivered. I like to go pick up the things.
Well, I know the digital copies, the e-copies. I don't know where you can pay and download the e-copy. It's quicker.
I like to flip books.
Okay, I'm the same. I get that.
Yeah,
I get that. Yeah.
When we're talking about what should we talk about on the podcast, and you said, you would like to talk about followership.
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense. I'm like, followership. Yeah, I just know about following to be a good leader, but so I'm sure there are people that will be watching this, and this is their first time ever knowing that to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower. Yeah. So, what's your final word to them?
I think my final word would be, you first need to get it out of your head that, there are some things that you need to get out of your head. First is that I want to develop my followership capacity so that I can become a leader, right? I think you should just get that out of your head and replace it with, I want to improve my followership capacity so that I'm a better person, right? You just want to better yourself. You just want to improve your mind, improve your spirit, improve your soul, improve your body. So there isn't this ulterior motive of, I want to be a good follower so that I become something, a better leader. I want to become a good follower because I recognize that I should consistently be looking to grow myself, right? Whether or not you become a leader eventually, that you've actually become a better person than you were before, right? So I would say, start out with that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. UB, for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Kate. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with your friends and family so that they can learn about followership and how they can be great leaders by being good followers.
That's
even
right.
though you might not agree with that. Thank you guys for watching, and see you on the next episode. Bye.